1. Biological hazard.
Biological hazard is a major source of risk that may result in emergencies and disaster. They cause significant loss of life, affect many thousands of people, have the potential for major economic losses through loss of livestock and crops, and may also cause damage and loss to the natural heritage, including the endangered fauna and flora. Fauna refers to animals, while flora is a plant life. Biological hazard pose risk for many workers in a wide variety of ways. For examples, workers in healthcare professions are exposed to biological hazard via contact with human bodily matter, such as blood, tissues, and saliva, because these substances have a high risk of containing viral or bacterial diseases.
So, classification of microorganisms and their characteristics. So, bacteria are the most biological hazards in food establishments. Bacteria have more reported cases of foodborne diseases than the chemical and physical hazards. So, bacteria are uncircular microorganisms. It is not visible to the naked eyes, but when cultured in growth medium like agar, it grows into colony and can be seen without the aid of the microscope. So, bacteria thrive everywhere when conditions become favorable for growth in air, water, soil, land, animals, and humans. So, there are ways to control food spoilage and pathogens in food processing and food establishments. So, practicing food safety, hygiene, and food sanitation improves the culinary quality and shelf life of food. Bacterial growth. So, bacteria multiply in a process called binary fission, in which one cell bacteria divides into two cells. So, when bacteria reproduce and increase in number, this is referred to as bacterial growth. So, bacterial growth is a proliferation of bacterium into two daughter cells in a process called binary fission. Providing no event occurs, the resulting daughter cells are genetically identical to the original cells.
The examples of biological hazards. Parasites is an organism that lives in or on an organisms of another species and benefits by deriving nutrients at the other's expenses. Protozoans are single-celled organisms. These come in many different shapes and sizes.
4 types of biological hazard. First, bacteria. Bacteria are microscopic organisms that exist in every environment, both inside and outside other organisms. While some are harmful, most serve a purpose. They support plant and animal life and use in industrial and medicinal industries. Although they have a bad reputations, they do a lot of goods. Second, virus. Virus is a small location of genetic code, either DNA or RNA, surrounded by protein code. A virus cannot replicate alone. Viruses most affect cells and use components of the whole cell to make copy of themselves. Often, they kill the whole cell in the process that cause damage to the host organs.
Two kinds of bacteria, which is good bacteria and bad bacteria. What is good bacteria? Good bacteria is also known as probiotic, are live bacteria in yeast that are good for you, especially your digestive system. We usually think of this as germs that cause diseases, but your body is full of bacteria, both good and bad. Probiotics are often called good or helpful bacteria because they help keep your gut healthy. What are examples of good bacteria? Lactobacillus, Bifidobacteria, Streptococcus, and Saccharomyces. What is bad bacteria? Bad bacteria are those which do us harm. We refer to them as pathogens. This might be acquired from our environment, the bacteria causing cholera. Vibrio cholera can be acquired by eating food or drinking water contaminated with the feces of infected people or through direct contact with an infected person. What are examples of bad bacteria? Clostridium perfringens, Staphylococcus, and Escherichia coli. Source of bacteria. The bacteria can be found in unpasteurized dairy products and salty foods such as ham and other sliced meat. Food that are made or come in contact with hands and require no additional cooking are at highest risk, including salad such as ham, egg, tuna, chicken, potato, and macaroni.
Biological hazards are caused by animals, plants, or microbes like bacteria and viruses, which impact on our health. Shown are a tick, poison ivy, and a virus, rhinovirus, which causes the common cold.
The effect of biological hazard. Biological hazards are organisms or substances produced by organisms that are very harmful to our human health. This includes bacteria, viruses, yeast, and mold. Our health can be affected by these organisms with consumption often resulting in infection, intoxication, or even death. So that's the effect of a biological hazard.
So I will tell you about the viral hazard. Viral hazard is a biological hazard, includes bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other living organisms that can cause acute and chronic infections by entering the body either directly or through breaks in the skin. So, viral hazard do not need food, water, or air in order for them to survive. Do not cause spoilage, and they reproduce inside the host cell. For more further information, infects living cells and species specific. They survive in human intestines, water, or food for months. Viral hazard also is a transmission usually by fecal oral route, touching contaminated surface, direct contact with infected person, and is related to poor personal hygiene.
Viruses differ three ways from living cells. First, viruses are simple and are singular, or not made up of cells or divided into cells. 2. The same complete virus particle variant contains only one genetic material. It's either RNA or DNA. Third, they need a living host to multiply and grow like us humans. So how can we prevent these viruses? First, through cooking. Wash the ingredients properly and cook it based on the procedure. Second is personal hygiene of the employees. So we should clean ourselves, take a bath every day, brushing teeth, cutting nails, and more for us to prevent these viruses.
Hepatitis A virus. Hepatitis A virus is a foodborne infection that inhabits the infected host at 6 weeks without showing symptoms of the disease. Food workers can be contagious for 1 week before symptoms appear and 2 weeks after showing symptoms of the disease. And for my explanation about hepatitis A virus is an inflammation of the liver that can cause mild to severe illness. The hepatitis A virus is transmitted through ingestion of contaminated food and water or through direct contact with an infectious person. Almost everyone recovers fully from hepatitis A with a lifelong immunity.
Symptoms and time duration. The disease shows symptoms in the infected person such as fever, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and fatigue. The advanced stage of the disease result of swelling of liver and show yellowing of eyes and skin. The duration of infection is 15 to 50 days in host. Mode of transmission. Sources of contamination of hepatitis: a virus, raw and slightly cooked seafood, raw vegetable harvested in polluted water, and infected food worker.
Rotavirus. The characteristics of rotavirus. The group rotavirus is the main cause of the disease rotavirus gastroenteritis. This group rotavirus has been the infecting infants and children that develop severe diarrhea. Symptoms and time duration of rotavirus. Commonly, the symptoms of rotavirus gastroenteritis are vomiting, watery diarrhea, and low fever. Time duration ranges for 1 to 3 days, in which it begins with vomiting, followed by 4 to 8 days of diarrhea. Mode of transmission of rotavirus. Contamination of food can occur infected food workers, especially in food that do not require cooking like salads and fruits.
Norwalk virus. Norwalk virus is a common foodborne virus that causes foodborne infections. Symptoms and time duration. Symptoms associated with Norwalk virus infection are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain that can accompanied by headache and fever. A mild disease usually develops to 24 to 48 hours. And after contamination, it can last 1 to 3 days.
Noroviruses are a group of related viruses that cause acute gastrointestinal illness sporadically or in outbreak. Noroviruses are sometimes referred to as Norwalk virus or Norwalk-like virus, based on the name given to the first strain identified in the 1970s. Mode of transmission. Viral infection is through ingestion of food and water contaminated by Norwalk virus through fecal matter. Prevention. It is essential that food should be handled properly and cooked at the appropriate temperature. Avoid ingestion of raw seafood and potable water. Wash them. Norovirus is a very contagious virus that causes vomiting and diarrhea. Anyone can get infection and sick with norovirus. You can get norovirus from having direct contact with an infected person, consuming contaminated food or water.
Molds. Multicellular, visible mycelium and pigmented fruiting structure. Growth not as dependent on temperature as bacteria. Exist in dormant state as spores which resistant to low moisture, high heat, high acidity, and freezing. Both spoilage and food safety concern. Many molds produce mycotoxins, causes acute poisoning. Long-term effects such as immune deficiency and cancer present in all kinds of animal feed. So, products like wheat bran, corn and rice grains, cereal, cocoa, coffee beans, oil seeds, and coconut.
I'm going to discuss the 7 main causes of food poisoning. First is poor personal hygiene of food handlers. Food handlers are one of the main contact to food. The lack of attention to personal hygiene can cause of contamination. All of us carry disease-causing microorganisms on and in our bodies, and these microbes can be transmitted to the food. So by staying healthy and keeping clean, we should start in our personal hygiene. Personal hygiene may be described as the principles of maintaining cleanliness of the external body. Some of the examples of personal hygiene include taking a daily bath, trimming of nails, proper haircuts, frequent hand washing, and so on. The second main causes of food poisoning is recent intestinal or respiratory upset of food handlers. If the food handlers have respiratory upset like flu and cold, by simply coughing and sneezing can lead to transmit the bacteria into the food. So if the food handlers have respiratory upset, he or she should inform the supervisor and not handle the food for transmission. Third main causes of food poisoning is inadequate temperature control during transport, operation, storage, or serving of food. Inadequate temperature control can lead to have a bacteria and viruses. To prevent food poisoning, we should maintain cleanliness in our surroundings and have a time and temperature combination to destroy a specific microorganism. The fourth main causes of food poisoning is food from unsanitary source of supply. Food from unsanitary source of supply is one of the reasons to transfer the bacteria or viruses from one place to another. From the word unsanitary, which means unclean or dirty. Thus, we need to make sure that the food supply is clean to avoid poisoning. The fifth main causes of food poisoning is Bad food handling practices. Bad food handling practices can lead to spreading of bacteria. Some examples of bad food handling are not wearing a proper attire, licking finger or touching nose, mouth, or hair in the preparation area, spitting in the food handling area, wearing makeup or spraying perfume in the food preparation area, and spitting or leaning in the work tables or equipment. Those what I've mentioned are not allowed because it can cause contamination to the food. The 6 main causes of food poisoning is dirty food premises and or equipment. A regular and thorough cleaning of kitchen and equipment can reduce pathogens from spreading to consumers. Before we prepare the food, we need to check first if the kitchen and equipment are clean because bacteria from dirty kitchen can spread to the food, which can also lead to food poisoning. The 7 causes of food poisoning is the presence of insect and rodent pests. Insect and rodent pests are disease carriers as well. Why? For instance, the effect of pests are unhygienic. When they contact your food, they could leave bacteria. Insect and rodents perch from different places and eat anything that seems edible to them.
Ways to prevent food poisoning. Protect food from contamination. Prevent bacteria from getting into high-risk foods. And the first one is stop contamination by separating raw and risk foods. Keep food covered. Use clean utensils and wiping clothes. Do not refreeze food that has been defrosted. And lastly, clean and disinfect equipment and surfaces after preparing raw food. Wear suitable protective clothing. Prevent insects, birds from entering. Use correct cleaning and sanitizing procedures. Keep food and equipment off the floor. Removing waste and garbage properly. Second one is prevent bacteria from multiplying. By keeping food at room temperature for the shortest possible time. And remove conditions for bacterial growth. And stop multiplication of the bacteria by refrigerate storage below 5 degrees Celsius. Store food out of danger zone. And lastly, stop survival of the bacteria through cooking, heat processing such as sterilization and canning. Sufficient time and temperature combination to destroy a specific microorganism. And lastly, ensure eternal food temperature to be sufficient. And that's all. Thank you.